What is a Public Information Act request? It's really important that every member of your governmental body knows how to identify a Public Information Act request. We're going to talk about how Public Information Act requests can be received in a moment, but all that you need to know for this point is that anyone in your governmental body can receive a Public Information Act request if it comes in by hard copy, hand delivery, or mail. So that means anyone can walk up to any employee in a governmental body and hand them a handwritten Public Information Act request, and it triggers all of the requirements of the Public Information Act and all of the requester's rights. So very important that everyone knows how to identify them. So what are the limits of a Public Information Act request? There are not very many of them. The first is that it must be in writing. That's easy. The second is that it must ask for information that is in existence at the time the request is received. So take from that, you're not required to create new records in response to a Public Information Act request. You can. It often is beneficial to requesters to do that, and it can make it easier for your governmental body to do it, but you are not required to create new records. There's no requirement to answer questions. So if an entity asks you a question, you're not required to respond to it. You're only required to make a good faith effort to relate that question to records that you maintain. And there is no requirement to perform legal research. So you're not required to receive a Public Information Act request, forward it to your legal department for them to provide an answer or legal research on. So those are the limitations on what you're not required to do under the Public Information Act. That's about it. There are no magic words required. They do not have to say this is a Public Information Act request. They do not have to refer to the government code. All that they have to do is submit something in writing that asks for information. It can be typed or handwritten. We've seen them in all forms. Email is the most common now, but we're still seeing them come in written on a napkin. And you cannot require the use of a specific form to submit a request. However, it's very important to note that you can recommend and provide a form. Many requesters do not submit Public Information Act requests very often, and so they are very appreciative when a form is provided, and it can help you and it can help them. For example, when requesters submit something in hard copy, they may not provide you with a phone number, or they may not provide you with an address. And that type of contact information is really critical for working with requesters on getting them the records promptly. So it's a good idea to have a form, but you are not permitted to require the use of the form. A requester can submit a request in any form as long as it is in writing. What if the request is unclear or unduly broad? Requesters can ask for anything that they want to under the Public Information Act. They're not required to limit themselves. But the Act does provide you with some tools in order to respond to a requester who's sought a voluminous or broad amount of information. Before I get into how you can clarify a request, I want to make it very clear, you cannot ask a requester why they want information. That is specifically prohibited by the Public Information Act. It doesn't matter why they want it, and you're not permitted to ask them why they want it. Some requesters will tell you, but you cannot ask them why they want the information. However, you can ask a requester to clarify a request or to narrow a request. It's very important tool to have in your toolbox when working with requesters. Working with requesters is really the best thing that you can do in order to reduce the burden on a governmental body in responding to a public information request. When a